Hello, chess friends. This is International Master Valeri, and welcome to my comments on the fourth game played between Magnus Carlsen and Sergei Karjakin in their World Championship match. Now, what I like to bring as an insight about this game is how exciting the 7 hours of play really felt. I mean, for those of you who didn't watch it live, I'd like to say it's kind of interesting to see and guess and sometimes be wrong, sometimes be actually right about certain things that could happen. But the tension, it's really something that affects both viewers as well as the players. Basically, Karjakin started with the opening that I do not particularly favor. Now, this is just my own explanation, and of course, I'm like, who am I? Some international master to speak of the opening repertoire of a top GM. But essentially, I just think that the line of H3, D3, and A3 really doesn't bring white much of an advantage. I mean, it's not bad. It doesn't lose. But it's one of these lines that simply doesn't bring anything to the table. And being white, you would expect that there is something more that you want out of the opening. Anyway, after the move a3, black played queen to d7, and after queen to d7, there was knight d2, c3, and knight f1. With a little bit of transposition, that knight is heading towards the g3, and essentially it was going to go towards the f5 in almost no time. So that's the whole point. After that move, basically white is setting up for the plan. He wants to advance and attack on the king side. So let's see what happens now. Black played h6, and white did knight 3 to h2. Now, until this moment, everything was just a simple development and all. But at this particular moment in time, white is simply bringing as much as possible his pieces on the king side. And this move of knight 3 to h2 is very special because it doesn't just bring to the table the idea of playing knight g4, but essentially it opens much of the freedom of white's pieces that will feel really good if they're given the opportunity to advance on the king side. So there's a lot of things that white will rely on here. After knight 3 to h2, black played d5, and white plays queen f3. Opening of the d-file isn't particularly that dangerous to white, so he can allow himself to just prepare his pieces, and basically what we see is that the knight g4 or even knight h3 with a few similar moves are going to be fairly strong as the game progresses. So the move looks good. White did it, and then black picked up to do knight a5. Bishop a2, and d takes d4. Certainly black is looking for this quick counterplay and challenge towards the center, so it actually does look fine, whatever he's doing. Of course, white's got his own goals and agenda, mostly going towards the king side quickly. So it's a pretty interesting position. After the exchange and recapture, black played knight c4, and white decided to engage with the move bishop takes to h6. It almost looks like a blunder, what black did. I mean, yeah, it looks like he just left that f6 knight hang, and white takes h6, so the f6 hangs, and so what did really black do? Why did this thing have to happen? But then you understand that it's not that dangerous, and in reality, black's development and preparation could turn out pretty important in order to help him confront white and even take advantage. So the move of bishop takes h6 just isn't all that dangerous, we could say. Alright, what does black do? He played queen c6. Now again, I don't want to say that this is the best move. Perhaps there could have been knight xt4, but black would have actually left behind this very important queen that's really important for the battle. So it was necessary for him to bring it, and queen c6 is an effective way to both protect the knight, challenge the e4, and make the queen participate in all that fight. So it was a good move. After that, white played bishop takes c4. The exchange of this knight feels very natural as an idea. I mean, trading off an important knight is much better than retreating or leaving the b2 hang. So it's understandable why White just didn't want to ever allow anything bad to happen. So let's just trade it. It was a good move. It took a good opportunity. White taking the liberty of exchanging that knight and then moving the bishop right back to e3 almost felt right. And yet you realize that for the h pawn, which will never really be a disadvantage to black, White had to part with his incredibly important pawn on e4. It's a central pawn, so we just can't compare both of them, and we realize how difficult this position will become for White shortly after. Now, what happened in the next moves was really good because White applied a strong defense, and he did that very effectively, step by step. So, I mean, after b takes to the c, White played bishop e3, captures, knight g3, knight d6, and rook d1. I feel like this is the moment where there was a little bit of a miss by black. To my mind, a move like queen g6 would have made more, keeping thereby the control of the e4 and the command over the position. You see, so I mean, with all that sequence coming up, a bishop takes to h6 and everything that White did, he was really welcoming the black knight's retreat on the square of d6. I think this was a great opportunity for White. The moment actually black chose to push it back and retreat. Yeah. So knight x to the g3 or even queen to the g6, as we could say, were much easier, and in my opinion would have been a lot better for black to play along. With knight d6, it comes off pretty good for White. He plays rook d1. He doesn't have to worry no more. He doesn't have to feel scared or troubled. And the position looks quite good, quite decent. So what happened? Rook a b8, bishop to the c1. It seems like black's pawn structure is a little worse, but because those pawns cannot be attacked and they're giving him an open line, you realize that it's not that simple. It's not that easy. In fact, after bishop to c1, black played f6 to stabilize the position in the center, and he's now ready to put some extra challenge or maybe some sort of pressure against White's pawns and pieces. Of course, there's a lot more to happen. It's not an easy position for either side, but that's essentially what it was all about. So what's coming on next? f6, queen takes to the c6. Of course, black recaptured with the bishop, and White plays knight on g4. So White feels a little more restricted, but he's got good hopes and opportunities. If he's able to develop his piece as well, he might be able to move quickly towards the center, and that can be pretty important, I like to admit. So, what went now? After that next move, black played rook b5. I have to admit that this was an incredibly useful move, with which black is setting up all of his important pieces towards the queen side. He's ready to jump in with a move of rook to the b8. He'll be putting pressure on the queen side. And we could say that many of the white pieces are going to feel fairly behind. That doesn't mean anything yet, because there's no threats. And when there's no threats, there's, obviously time. But the prospects just don't look so good. So what happened next? After the move, rook b5, White played f3. And then after f3, black plays f5. Knight f2, bishop e7. So after that last move, basically White has to figure out what to do, as he's under a very severe pressure by black's pieces. So what is his best shot? That's a really, really good question. What Karjakin did was very interesting. He played f4. Now, here's a good point to make, that if you're in a difficult position and you actually want to defend as successfully as you can, you've got to play very active. Like, activity is the only thing that is going to help you to defend a difficult position. If you're not active, you're never going to defend the game. You're going to lose it in a painful manner. So, the first thing that we need to do is make sure we get rid of the pawns and we actually exchange them so we can open up the necessary lines for each of our pieces. So f4 really makes sense. Black played his bishop to h4, trying to increase the pressure in some way. But as a matter of fact, after that move, then white played f takes d5. And that's another great opportunity to exchange. Ultimately, after the exchange, recapture, there will be a few different trades that we do. And that simply cuts off a lot of the black material that he would otherwise use to threaten white. See, like, just remember that oftentimes it is very necessary to do this. It is very, very necessary to neutralize the opponent's attacking potential. So after bishop takes g3, the exchange, take. And what really happened up here, which was actually rook takes d1, c takes d6, white found it perfect to play rook d1. At any point, white wanted to make sure that his pieces are capable enough to hold black on the backside defending. And it was really good the way it's really happened. It was a very, very strong idea. So after the move rook d1, we realize it's not that easy for black to convert. Now, playing difficult positions is actually not an easy thing to do. It's mostly about making sure that you hold a good structure with solid pieces that you can eventually transform into, better possibilities. Just like, it's not easy. I mean, I want to tell you this. It's a very difficult and in some way even painful process. But white can do it because he knows black isn't quite in condition to deliver anything that dangerous. So he improved the king similarly. And now the activity. That was a beautiful move by Karjakin, with which he actually got himself into a much stronger position by bringing the rook right up in the middle. Now that rook, as you could see, is just being brilliant. It's like it's attacking. It's actually like apart from anything else, it's just keeping black a little down in a bad position, and it's making black to suffer. It's a very important thing. The more active you are, the more dangerous your pieces can be, and the more difficult they will make for the opponent to come forth and transform the position. That's something that the advanced pieces always have going for them. So, after that move, basically black played rook e5. So now there's king f1. Again, white's position isn't good, but there is no clear way for black to transform or win it. So king comes to f1, rook d5, hoping for an exchange, and white did the exchange. I mean, you need to know it. Like with every trade that you do, the opponent loses a little bit of his attack. So white wasn't against the exchanges. He was okay with them. Exchange takes, bishop g5, and h4. And I really find that an interesting move, because you got to know something. Pawn moves in the endgame can be really, really bad. Of course, it depends on the position and everything else, but you got to know it. It's when you move a pawn in an endgame, things can go extremely bad in a not good way. So the pawn moves need to be done very precisely, very carefully, and we need to be ready. See, I think white was. He knew what he was doing, and in a way, this is very risky, so I'm just going to recommend you to be careful. If you have to do this yourself, you want to be very precise before advancing a pawn that you don't know if it may actually become a weakness or not. So like black plays king h5, knight h3, bishop f7, and now black took the pawn on h4. I think you're mistaken by taking the pawn on h4. This caused an exchange. Now, I don't personally mind exchanges. I think that it was not a bad idea for black. However, it makes white's task easier. Now, usually one of the principles of winning such positions is hold your opponent the longer you can in a bad position. Because the longer you can keep him back there, the harder it's going to be for him to defend. If black just played something like bishop d5, I feel white would have had a lot more difficulties in the position due to the g2 weakness and certain similar things like that. So that would have been a really interesting way to see and try to see some ideas, like, you know, the bishop up, the possibility to challenge eventually towards the position. It's an interesting way to play it. Okay, well, I mean, it didn't happen, obviously, but it was something that I believe was important to consider. So after that, there was bishop takes d6, and now, of course, white has much less difficulty. The position is equal, but more importantly, black is missing his pressure. He doesn't have that tension anymore. He doesn't have that ability to prove any real, like challenge or threat or anything of that kind. So white is free to go with whatever he wants, knowing that, well, there's really nothing to worry about. It's just everything feels rather easy. Yeah, so that was very good. Now, of course, black played king g6. I guess he wanted to just jump in with that king and probably move it to put it on f6 or e6. I don't really know what he was going for. But then white played g4. And again, white was very precise. He knew exactly what he was doing by moving those pawns right up. See, I need you to be very careful, because these kind of pawn moves, they never come free. They never come as easily. So this could be quite scary and quite tricky. But white knew what he was doing, so he was okay with those moves. And, of course, as a result, bishop e5, a5, this is a good move. Black is waiting, but he already changed the position a little too much. And there is no easy way to win. There's no easy way to push the position. f4 was also, in my opinion, a bit of a mistake, which releases the tension. Black should have actually kept the bishop here so he can have a straightforward opportunity for his king to move on. Remember that, after all, in the endgame, everything's about activity. And that would have been a pivotal point in black's ability to win the game. It's not easy, but he can get that king forward, he can go forward, and you see, for example, after playing with the move of king e4, he can do the move of bishop g4 or whatever. Anyway, so that was the interesting part. After knight d1, black played f4, and the position closes. So now it's very difficult. The king on g6 feels very out of play. It's really behind, so it can't do much. And so after king e2, bishop g2 here, there are lots of moves that happen, but there's just definitely no way on how black could, actually convert it. Now, bishop d3 also feel it was not that perfect, but again, at least black was hoping that maybe knight x d3 or something can happen, and white just waits. There's just no way to break the position. It's too close, which was actually black's mistake. He should have kept the pieces going. He should have kept the opportunity for, something to happen. Now, it's not happening. It's not possible to happen. Nothing can go wrong, and white can really feel the freedom and the possibilities for his pieces and everything. It's just, that's about it. Like, just nothing dangerous. It was a great way on how Karjakin really managed to save this by posing as many difficulties as possible to black's ability to win. And then when that happened, after king c1 and this, just the exchange was a last attempt by black, really desperately to try and win the game, but it never really worked. And yes, I think white managed a very good maneuver to improve his king and put it on a great position, just like moving it towards the f2 so that then the knight can come through, and then there's the attack on the c3 that's taking place and everything. So it was really, really well done by white. It was a very strong maneuver and well played out, actually, by any means. So it was great. So overall, I think it was an instructive game. It had some good pointers, good, valuable ideas. I hope that you learned a great deal from it. I thought that white's defense was fantastic, and pretty well deserved victory in terms of draw.
Grandmaster Damian Lemos. First of all, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you would like to receive more free chess videos from us, you can just click the subscribe button below. I would also highly recommend signing up for my free mail course that 10 Grandmaster Secrets to Dominate Chess. During this exclusive course from onlinechesslessons.net, I'll share with you my own Grandmaster shortcuts to effective attacking, defending, and growth hacks to improving your chess without complicated books or memorization. So sign up by clicking the sidebar on the right, and I know you won't be disappointed. Once more, this is Damien for onlinechesslessons.net, and I'll see you in my videos. Thank you.